It is my pleasure to welcome you to this, the 32nd Annual General Meeting of the African Export-Import Bank, holding in the nation's federal capital territory of Abuja, a kingdom founded by Abubakar in 1828, and has been positively impacted by the experiences of some of the illustrious sons of this land, including Shehu Shagari, the man credited with the city's infrastructure development, as well as Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and Murtala Mohammed, the brains behind the development of the new capital. Indeed, it is our honor to host you as part of the bank's 2025 annual meetings and associated capacity and knowledge sharing events. These annual meetings have become pivotal in generating ideas, shaping policy design, and changing the narrative, while at the same time creating a platform for forging constructive partnerships and strategic alliances. Accordingly, we expect the outcome of these meetings in this great city to have consequential impact and alter the development trajectory of our continent. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to briefly go back to the history of Afrexim Bank's formation and the journey it has taken thus far. I think some of you will remember that the years leading to the formation of Afrexim Bank were turbulent, underpinned by global sovereign debt crisis, while elevated Afro-pessimism contributed to a mass withdrawal of trade and development finance from the continent. I want to remind us that the establishment of Afrexim Bank was Africa's response to the confluence of crises during that time. But the establishment of Afrexim Bank was also met with fierce resistance, both from within and without Africa. It was those whose goal it was to perpetuate the culture of dependence and underdevelopment of the continent who led such resistance. Notwithstanding the fierce opposition to its creation, Afrexim Bank has ascended into systemic relevance, supporting not only its clients but member countries and contributing to the continent's development aspirations. Over the past 3 decades, the resilience of the bank has been anchored on courage and determination, clear foresight, and a firm belief in its vision. It is against this background that the 2025 annual meetings are aptly themed, Building the Future on Decades of Resilience. Some of you may ask why this theme. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, 3 decades after its establishment, the very combined forces drawn from both within and without Africa that opposed the creation of the bank in the lead-up to its establishment have changed into various shapes, but with the sole objective of undermining this great institution. The theme also was influenced by the ongoing global development as the world continues to experience waves of global shocks with significant implications, especially for developing and vulnerable countries. Thus, this clarion call to look within and take our destiny in our own hands. An emerging fractured world characterized by heightened geopolitical tensions, economic fragmentation, and realignment, increasing protectionism crystallized by trade tariff wars, blatant disregard of rules-based multilateral trade, and heightened trade uncertainty is exacerbated by the withdrawal of aid from the continent. Accordingly, the certainties of the past, stability, predictable alliances, and open markets are giving way to a new era of fragmentation and volatility, thus creating a scenario that led to the establishment of Afrexim Bank. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so how do we navigate the headwinds associated with this emerging new world order? The experience of Afrexim Bank, and indeed the continent over the past 30 years, gives us optimism. Having exhibited resilience in the face of adversity, we can leverage Afrexim Bank's experience to chart a path for the future. Africa is at the crossroad, at a point where we need to be intentional about our aspirations, firm in our convictions, resolute in our actions, and determined in our collective purpose. We have arrived at a point where we need to harmonize our collective strength, be firm and resolute in our conviction in addressing our challenges and shaping the future. I wish you all fruitful meetings and deliberations, and hopefully we leave these meetings more resolute than ever to champion the cause of our destiny and for the prosperity of future generations. Please let me also take this time to urge you to explore the beautiful city of Abuja in your spare time. Thank you for your attention.
It is a very, very great honor and privilege for me to be here today to deliver the opening remarks at this year's annual meeting of the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, with the overarching theme, building the future on decades of resilience. Permit me to begin by congratulating the bank on its 32nd anniversary and to commend the President, Professor Arama, and other members of the Board of Directors, as well as the entire Afrexim Bank team, for its unwavering commitment to the transformation of the continent's economic landscape. This continues to inspire hope, confidence, and concerted action. The theme of today's session, 32 years of resilient growth and transformation, could not have come at a more auspicious time. It speaks directly to the essence of this institution and the road of travel of our continent. Today, we gather to reflect on and celebrate the journey of Afrexim Bank over the past 3 decades. Afrexim has emerged as more than an average financial institution. It has become a trusted partner, a convener of ambition, and a catalyst for change, shaping strategy, enabling execution, and elevating African agency across the globe. Distinguished guests, it has already been mentioned that Afrexim was born in Abuja in October 1993. The founding mandate, may I say, was bold and transformative: to finance, promote, and expand African trade at a time when global financial institutions were retreating from our shores. The visionaries, and we're happy to have some of them here today, who midwifed its birth, understood that Africa required a dedicated institution rooted in the continent and responsive to its peculiarities to unlock its latent potential in both intra-African and global trade. Over the last 32 years, Afrexim has grown from modest beginnings to become a symbol of African financial fortitude. from an initial capital base of $750 million, relatively small amount by international standards, the bank has expanded its capital assets to over $40 billion US as of the end of last year. This remarkable trajectory reflects both prudent financial stewardship and the continent's growing confidence in its capabilities. It is also a testament to the expanding coalition of stakeholders spanning 51 African countries and a mix of public and private investors who have placed their trust in Afrexim Bank's position. Besides its impressive financial results, Afrexim Bank achievements have been both wide-ranging and deeply strategic. It has distinguished itself as a reliable counter-cyclical actor and first responder during crisis. The bank has repeatedly risen to the occasion when Africa needed it most. Ladies and gentlemen, as a country, Nigeria provides a reflection of the impact and potential for strategic partnerships with Afrexim Bank. A founding member and a major shareholder, Nigeria is also the bank's largest single beneficiary. Earlier this year, the president and chairman of the board noted that Nigeria has received approximately $52 billion in trade and project financing over the past decades, mirroring both the size of our economy and the depth of engagement with Afrexim Bank. While we celebrate these accomplishments, it is imperative to recognize the persisting and emerging challenges facing the African continent. Rising trade protectionism, global economic fragmentation, and shifting geopolitical dynamics are not only undermining Africa's developmental prospects, they are also threatening the coherence of the international ecosystem. Therefore, the role of Afrexim Bank has never been more crucial in addressing these challenges. The last 32 years have affirmed its credential as a bulwark towards volatility, a catalyst for intra-Africa trade, and a champion for integrating Africa into global value chains. As we reflect on today's sub-theme, 32 years of resilient growth and transformation, we must also ask a forward-looking question. What does it take to build an African institution that stands the test of time? Resilience is not accidental. It is engineered through deliberate choices, strong foundations, and a mindset oriented towards the long term. First, it takes strategic foresight, the ability to look beyond the noise of the present and invest in solutions for the next decade, not just the next quarter. Resilient institutions are always thinking ahead. Second, it requires crisis preparedness. Institutions that survive and thrive are those that plan disruption before it arrives. They build buffers, diversify risks, and maintain discipline, especially when others are distracted by short-term gains. Third, clear communication is essential. In moments of uncertainty, people follow clarity. Resilient institutions speak honestly, act transparently, and stay close to their stakeholders, particularly when the road is rough. And finally, none of this can work without robust systems and governance. Great ideas cannot succeed on weak foundations. Resilience demands sound decision-making processes, strong data, functional infrastructure, and the humility to learn and course correct along the way. I wish you all the success as you go on to do greater things, continue being a dreamer, and actualizing your dreams. We thank you for your years of service to the African continent, and I personally will say to you, keep dreaming. Thank you very much.
The theme for this year's meeting, Building the Future on Decades of Resilience, captures the very essence of our shared African journey, our collective fortitude, and the vision that will drive us forward. For decades, our continent has weathered storms of every kind, from economic shocks, health crisis, climate disruptions, political uncertainties, to global market shifts. And yet through all this, Africa has proven again and again that it is not only resilient, but deeply resourceful. We have adapted, we have innovated, and we have found strength in unity. This resilience, deeply rooted in the spirit of our people, is the foundation on which we must now build the future. And build we must. We envision an Africa that is economically integrated, industrially robust, digitally connected, and climate resilient. But this vision will not come to life by chance. It requires deliberate design, strong partnerships, and bold leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where institutions like Afreximbank Bank have been a pillar in our shared journey. Since its founding in 1993, the bank has stood beside African nations, not merely as a financier, but as a true development partner, helping to reimagine what is possible in African trade and transformation. Efforts in enhancing intra-African trade, supporting small and medium enterprises, and fostering industrialization have yielded tangible benefits for our economies. Initiatives like the Pan-African payments and settlement systems are fast dismantling barriers to cross-border trades, while strategic partnerships are ensuring that African businesses remain competitive on the global stage. We have seen the fruit of our labor in growing trade volumes across the continent, in the empowerment of women entrepreneurs, and the increasing participation of African economies in global value chain. These successes are not endpoints, but rather stepping stones towards greater achievements. Of course, these achievements did not come without challenges. Global financial architecture, as it stands, does not always favor the developing world. Yet institutions like Afreximbank Bank provide African solutions to African needs, tailored, timely, and transformational. To all the delegates gathered here, your presence is a testament to the collective will and enduring spirit that drive our continent forward. Once again, welcome. Welcome to the 32nd Afreximbank Annual Meetings, and welcome to the dawn of a brighter, more resilient Africa. Let the work begin. Thank you.
At the Africa Finance Corporation, we are proud to have traveled alongside Afrexim Bank on this journey. Together, we are building the Kano-Maradi rail line, strengthening regional integration and activating the promise of the AFCTA. We are together building the African Medical Center of Excellence. We together build several projects across the continent. More importantly, we are focused on one of the most important things that would turn around our future and prosperity on the continent. We are together building transformational projects that will move and transform Africa's commodities and produce to finished and processed goods for use within the continent and outside the continent. We have been working together on the Arise Integrated Industrial Platform. First, they were lenders to the project, and then they eventually became equity partners alongside us. And we're finding ways to strengthen that partnership and to do more across the continent, especially here in Nigeria, where we have a new ambition of trying to transform the textile sector in the country. Again, we're focused on how to create more jobs because we believe jobs are the most important parameters of success for growing economies. So the more jobs we can create together, the better a future we can leave for the next generation. This partnership extends beyond collaboration. It demonstrates a shared mission to realize the Africa we want. I would like to stand here before you today as the chair of the African Multilateral Financial Institutions, AMFI, established by African heads of states and the African Union Commission in February 2024. AMFI unites Africa-owned and Africa-controlled multilateral financial institutions that have been built by Africa for Africans to deliver the Africa we all want. Alongside Afrexim and AFC, our growing membership includes the TDB Group, Africa Re, ATD, Shelter Afrique Development Bank, ZEPRI, East African Development Bank, Africa Solidarity Fund, and FEDER. And I'd like to announce that last week here in Abuja, AFDB mentioned that they want to join AMFI, and so that's a big plus for us. Together, AMFI members manage a collective balance sheet exceeding $70 billion. And with the addition of AFDB, you know what that will look like. It will be almost at the $200 billion that the public development banks in Africa collectively manage. But the opportunity and responsibility before us is far greater. Our most recent State of Infrastructure report indicates that Africa has over $4 trillion of domestic capital pools. The interesting thing is that over $1 trillion of that is in non-banking assets. That means with the right regulatory reforms and structured intermediation, we're able to channel a big proportion of these funds into the infrastructure that will enable industrialization, create jobs for our people, build the infrastructure that ensures connectivity for Africans and trade amongst Africans. We are keen to observe that we have over $405 billion in pensions, mainly in South Africa, Nigeria, Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, and several other countries. We have over $314 billion in insurance assets. We have over $150 billion with the sovereign wealth funds. These are African resources that must be mobilized and deployed at scale to meet our own trade, infrastructure, and development needs. As I've always said, Africa's development must be owned by Africans and it must be financed by Africans. I would say that one of the first meetings I had with Professor Orama when I first became the president of AFC, in fact, he was actually the first person to send me a letter of congratulation, and he engaged me then on how we could work together. One of the things we agreed upon was that we must take ownership of our development and we must lead in the execution of that ownership. And that means working together to do projects. That means working together to mobilize resources, as we have done. That means working together to deliver the promise that Africa needs. That is why, under the leadership of His Excellency President João Lourenço, the chairperson of the African Union and president of the Republic of Angola, and in close partnership with other NEPOD, we are activating the AU Development Fund, a new platform to bridge critical financing gaps to accelerate delivery of Agenda 2063. As the world becomes more fragmented and nations increasingly turn inwards, Africans must look within to look forward. Find solutions for our development challenges. The era of reliance on external benevolence is giving way to one of self-determination, and this is the new reality. African multilateral financial institutions are more critical than ever. We are significantly policy important because we have demonstrated that without us, most things would not happen on the continent. So it's important that we continue to work together to advance development and accelerate development impact for our people. We understand the terrain. We are invested in the outcomes. We have skin in the game. Our African multilateral financial institutions are not only technically capable, they are ideologically aligned with our shared ambition to transform Africa. Our fates are intertwined. To do better for our people is not a mission, it is a necessity which must be realized. Recognition of the policy importance of these institutions, African governments have invested their capital, signed enabling protocols, and enacted legislations necessary to make African multilateral development banks fit for purpose, impactful, and efficient. This partnership demonstrates the shared vision and the aspiration of the people of Africa, and is aligned, enduring, and responsive. We must therefore empower these institutions as the first point of call to channel domestic capital into Africa's development priorities and to lead our economic resilience and renaissance from within. In closing, I call on all of you to work with African financial institutions to ensure that we remain resilient and that we work together to strengthen African financial institutions and not join the fray in attempts to weaken African multilateral financial institutions. And we do that by really respecting the laws of our respective countries, where we have already empowered these institutions with the immunities and privileges that's required for them to continue to de-risk opportunities in their domestic territories and to mobilize capital at scale for development within the continent. Africa's prosperity demands that we invest in our own resilience. This we rely on through our institutions, and we must act with urgency and unity in shaping our economic destiny. This is the purpose of AMFI. This is the work we must now accelerate. So I call upon our governments, our regulators, and our private sector leaders and our institutional investors. Stand with us. Work with us to deepen our capital base. Support us in strengthening our credit ratings. Empower institutions to lead where others cannot. Africa's financial architecture must be robust, integrated, and sovereign, because only then can we seize our moment in history. Let us build Africa together. Let us build our future together. Congratulations once again to President Birgit Orama for your amazing stewardship of Afrexim Bank and all that you've achieved with your team. Thank you for your friendship, your vision, and your enduring commitment to achieving Africa's full and dynamic potential. Thank you.
Let me extend heartfelt congratulations to Afrexim Bank for reaching this milestone. 32 years of courage, resilience, and service to its people. 32 years of choosing vision over fear, action over hesitation, and competition and community over competition. From its founding, this bank has taken on a mission far greater than commerce. It has carried the burden of opportunity, building systems that empower African peoples and economies to chart their own course, to finance their own progress, and to trust their own. Institutions like this one answer their own questions about what is possible. That mission is still unfolding, and it is still as urgent as ever. Allow me to take a moment to pay special tribute to my brother and my friend, Professor Benedict Orama. Under your stewardship, Afrexim Bank has become more than a financial institution. It has become a living testament to what is possible when leadership is not only competent, but deeply conscious. You have expanded the horizon. You have expanded the horizon of what African leadership and institution building can mean. You have been both strategic and soulful, firm in your technical leadership, but also emotionally intelligent in how you have guided relationships, built trust, and told a new story about what Africa and its diaspora can build together. I speak of this not in abstraction, but from a place of deep personal reflection. When I met Professor Orama for the first time in 2022 in Barbados, just 1 month after taking office as Prime Minister, I was struck not only by his clarity of purpose, but his generosity of spirit. That meeting planted a seed, and I left with the firm conviction that the work of connecting Africa and the Caribbean was not just about speeches and symbolism. It was about systems. It was about finance. It was about reshaping the machinery of cooperation across the Atlantic so that it no longer simply echoed our history, but actively built our future. From that first conversation, it became clear to me that Afrexim Bank, under President Orama's leadership, was not simply welcoming the Caribbean into its orbit, it was embracing us as kin. That is why St. Kitts and Nevis was proud to be the very first country in the Caribbean to sign a memorandum of understanding through Afrexim Bank. That was not a diplomatic formality. It was a deliberate act of trust. A prime minister and a government, we believed in the bank's vision. We believed in his vision. And we took a step not just on behalf of our country, but on behalf of the entire CARICOM region. That step has proven to be one of the most impactful and future-facing decisions we have taken in recent years. It is also why, above the desk in my office, hangs a painting, a gift from Professor Orama. And I see it every day. And I do not just see the art. I see a reminder that partnership is built not only on contracts, but on character. That beyond the bureaucracy of intergovernmental relations lies something that is far more powerful. Those things are relationships, trust, shared identity, shared accountability, and shared ambition. That is why today, as we gather under the theme, Building the Future on Decades of Resilience, we must remember that resilience alone, though critically important, is not enough. Resilience is what carried us through colonization, through exploitation, through decades of underdevelopment, through decades of being shut out. And listen to the story of what brought the Afrexim Bank together, of course, pleads to this. But resilience must now be matched with reinvention, with the courage to reimagine ourselves as architects as we build our countries and economies together. That is where Afrexim Bank's true legacy lies, not only in what it has protected and built thus far, but what it dares to build in the future. Today, the Caribbean is no longer a distant observer to Africa's renaissance. We have become an active partner as the sixth region of the African Union. So thanks to the Afrexim Bank, we have moved from the margins to the center. The bank's establishment of a regional office in Bridgetown, Barbados, the first and only Afrexim Bank office outside of the African continent, was a political and spiritual gesture. It signaled to us that in the Caribbean, that we are no longer the forgotten family members of this great continent, but we are truly the sixth region of the Union. Since that time, the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, ACTIF, has become the premier space for mutual engagement between our regions. ACTIF 2022 in Barbados, ACTIF 2023 in Guyana, and ACTIF 2024 in the Bahamas have collectively mobilized over $6 billion in new opportunities. And we look ahead with great anticipation to ACTIF 2025 in Grenada, where I am confident that more will be delivered. And dare I say that I also now look forward to ACTIF 2026 in St. Kitts and Nevis. But these meetings, these agreements, these events are not the end. They are the beginning of a new era. An era where African and Caribbean businesses co-finance tourism, co-develop climate resilience infrastructure, co-create fintech solutions, and co-author the story of what a truly global Africa looks like. Earlier this year, I led a high-level delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis to this great city, Abuja. It was a productive, affirming, and deeply meaningful journey. During that visit, we had discussions that spanned renewable energy, biotechnology, agriculture, creative economy, and education. Out of that visit came opportunities that are already being activated, including new project development frameworks and cultural exchange initiatives. And just this month, we were honored to receive an African delegation in St. Kitts and Nevis. That visit represented a physical crossing of a once tormented corridor, the Atlantic Ocean, that for centuries symbolized our forced separation. But this time, the journey was not one of sorrow, but one of solidarity. The visit breathed new life into our shared commitment to build a new bridge that I call the Atlantic Bridge, one made not of wood and steel, but of people, of partnership, and of purpose. We are now reimagining the Middle Passage, not as a scar, but as a route. Not as a memory of bondage, but as a pathway of boldness. The waters that once carried our ancestors away in chains now carry our children's dream, our nation's ambitions, and our sheer determination to reunite across the Atlantic in pursuit of sovereignty, prosperity, and dignity. As Prime Minister, I've made it a core foreign policy priority to see Africa and the Caribbean not as two regions with occasional overlaps, but as one extended family with an economic, diplomatic, and developmental destiny that is interlinked. Under my upcoming chairmanship of CARICOM in January of 2026, I intend to lead missions of regional heads of governments back to the African continent. This will not be a courtesy call. It will be a declaration of intent, a commitment to further embed the Caribbean into the architecture of global Africa.
This is more than a ceremonial gathering. It is a congregation of builders and believers. We gather under a theme that is both timely and profound, building the future on decades of resilience. And today's sub-theme, 32 years of resilient growth and transformation, invites deep reflection on where we've been, what we've endured, and more importantly, where we now aspire to go. Let me begin by expressing our profound gratitude to Afreximbank Since its foundation here in Abuja in 1993, Afrexim Bank has grown from a regional trade financier into a continental development anchor. It has mobilized and disbursed more than $100 billion across Africa and over $52 billion to Nigeria, more than any other country on the continent. I'll take the applause. It's for the Afrexim Bank. In Nigeria alone, Afrexim Bank's transformative footprint include the African Trade Center, commissioned here in Abuja, which now serves as a nucleus for policy innovation, trade facilitation, and business intelligence. The African Medical Center of Excellence, which opened just weeks ago, providing world-class oncology, cardiology, and hematology services, and reducing the over $1 billion spent annually on medical tourism. The African Quality Assurance Centers in Kaduna and Ogun States, strengthening the export readiness of Nigerian products. A $300 million export manufacturing initiative, strategically located in Cross River, Enugu, Imo, and Kano states to catalyze industrial clusters. And the pivotal $3 billion Intra-Africa Petroleum Trade Facility, enhancing Nigeria's energy security and supporting domestic refining capacity. These are not merely projects, they are strategic investments in resilience, in sovereignty, and in shared prosperity. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our administration is pursuing one of the boldest economic reform agendas in Nigeria's history. Because resilience is not passive, it must be planned, built, and protected. We have unified the exchange rate, eliminating multiple FX windows to restore transparency and investor confidence. We have phased out fuel subsidies, saving billions of dollars in leakages and reinvesting in social protection and infrastructure. We have launched a national compressed natural gas CNG transition plan, converting over 150,000 vehicles and reducing fuel costs and emissions. We have accelerated strategic infrastructure, including the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and the Eastern Rail Corridor, to improve regional connectivity. We have transformed our oil sector, introducing real-time tracking of exports and enhancing revenue assurance through the Petroleum Cargo Declaration Scheme. And we have expanded access to trade finance and restructured support to small and medium enterprises through digitized platforms and AFCTA aligned export development zones. These actions, while difficult, are already yielding impact. GDP is expected to grow at between 4 to 4.5% in 2025. And I see the CME also nodding his head because he's pushing for 7%. Inflation is stabilizing. Reserves are strengthening to circa $40 billion, and the central bank governor is here. Our economy is on a firmer, more diversified footing. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the past 3 decades have taught us that resilience is not just survival. It is the capacity to adapt, to lead, and to reinvent. Afrexim Bank has embodied this ethos. In times of global liquidity crunch, it provided emerging trade financing. In the aftermath of COVID-19, it rolled out the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, PATIMFA. Today, it is shaping continental policy through PAPS, the African Trade Gateway, Afrexim, and its new concessional finance window. Now, as Africa faces the consequences of global fragmentation, commodity transition, and climate disruption, the challenge is clear. We must go beyond resilience to renewal. That means mobilizing blended finance to crowd in private capital for infrastructure and green transition. That means deepening regional value chains anchored in AFCTA and powered by scalable industrial policy. That means institutionalizing digital trade systems such as PAPS and MANSA to cut costs and boost intra-African commerce. That means strengthening financial institutions like Afrexim Bank with new capital, governance frameworks, and risk-sharing facilities. And also, that means ensuring that transformation is inclusive, reaching our youth, our SMEs, and our women entrepreneurs. Colleagues and friends, the future is not something we wait for. It is something we must build. Let us seize this moment, the 32nd annual meetings, not just as a commemoration, but as a commissioning of new ideas, new instruments, and new coalitions for Africa's next chapter. Nigeria stands ready to lead, ready to collaborate, and ready to deliver. We will continue to work hand in hand and with Afrexim Bank to deepen our partnerships and align more closely with Africa's development agenda. In closing, let me again thank Professor Benedict Oramah and the entire Afrexim Bank leadership for your unwavering commitment to Africa. To all our guests, our friends from across the continent and beyond, Abuja is your home this week. May your deliberations be fruitful, your partnerships renewed, and your ambitions for Africa enlarged. On behalf of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I hereby declare the 32nd annual meetings of Afrexim Bank officially open. Thank you very much.
I should say that without the support of Afrexim Bank, the AFCTA will not succeed. The reduction and elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers requires financial support. It requires trade finance tools. It requires tools for intervention in industrial development, in green trade, in green industrialization, and other facilities that the Afrexim Bank has introduced over the years. And so in this context, allow me to mention but a few of these facilities. Working with Afrexim Bank, we introduced the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which enables payment in local currency at reduced costs and instantaneously. Our estimates collectively, Afrexim Bank and the AFCTA Secretariat, are that this will reduce the cost of trade and currency convertibility by close to $5 billion United States dollars, enabling our SMEs to take advantage of this market. Trading in the United States dollar or any other currency has no business between African countries. We must use our own currencies. We must ensure the economic sovereignty of our continent, guard ourselves against the ever-shifting global geopolitical tensions which have an impact on payments. And therefore, working with Afrexim Bank, we submitted to the Assembly of Heads of States and Government the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System as Africa's system for payments and rolling it out throughout the continent. Second, we established the AFCTA Adjustment Fund, again through the intervention of Afrexim Bank, mobilized up to $10 billion with a seed capital of $1 billion to support countries as they implement the AFCFTA. A third, we established the AFCFTA $1 billion facility for the automotive sector to enable components manufacturers to participate in the market of automotive vehicle assembly and manufacturing, which by the year 2035 is estimated to be at about $46 billion, where the right interventions are made to support manufacturing. We also rolled out trade-enabling tools such as the AFCTA e-tariff book, the Rules of Origin Manual, and soon we will launch the AFCTA Transit Guarantee Scheme. We therefore have moved beyond political declarations. We have moved beyond expressions of aspirations to creating a rules-based, functional, operational, multilateral African trading system underpinned by legally binding protocols across the various sectors of Africa's economy, including competition, investment, and as I've just mentioned, digital trade. We should be proud of what we've achieved. We should celebrate these modest achievements. However, we should be mindful of the challenges that lie ahead. We should be under no illusion that the journey ahead will continue to be difficult. Challenges such as lack of efficiency of our customs systems, the cost of trade finance, which prohibits market entry of our SMEs, will continue to require collaboration, particularly amongst our commercial banks and development finance institutions. We will continue to experience conflict and pockets of instability, as we see in some parts of our continent. And where this instability does take place, millions and millions of farmers are shut out of markets. We shall continue to confront the proliferation of coup d'etats, which again prohibit smallholder farmers, SMEs, from accessing markets across the various regions of our continent. And in this regard, our heads of states were very, very clear during the extraordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union when they convened in Malabo to condemn unconstitutional changes of government in our continent, which push back our continent decades back into poverty. We will continue to confront challenges that relate to externalities of the global externalities presented by the global financial system on our own economy, and these will impact negatively on our ability to uphold our commitments, rights and obligations under the AFCFTA for market access. The slow ratification of the protocol on movement of persons will also be a key challenge that we must confront. The right of establishment of our businesses across the continent, the right of small, medium enterprises and other business people to transact and to move around the continent in pursuit of trade and investment opportunities shall continue to be a challenge. And in this regard, we have to work together through the African Union to ensure that the Protocol on Movement of Persons is adopted and ratified to enable the anchor of Africa's economy, small medium enterprises, to take advantage of this AFCFTA market. All of this shall require stronger and greater collaboration. As I conclude, the vision of our founding mothers and fathers was bold, it was ambitious, and it was hopeful. They dreamt of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, united in purpose to integrate the economy of our continent. I dare say that today, through the AFCFTA, Afrexim Bank's interventions, we have taken giant steps forward to meet their ambitious dream. And so we stand on their shoulders. The founding mothers, the heroines of Africa's liberation struggle, the countless citizens of our continent who gave their lives to ensure that future generations, those of us that are here, see the benefits of their hard labor. We do, however, have a task at hand, and that is to finish the job that they started. The second objective which I set out, which is economic integration of our continent that continued to evade us, that task falls on our shoulders. The success of the AFCTA demands continued political leadership, which is there. Our heads of states are committed. Each and every head of state is absolutely committed to provide the necessary political leadership for this to succeed. We should push forward with renewed clarity and commitment. The AFCFTA Secretariat is committed to work with our development finance institutions, Africa 50, Africa Finance Corporation, the African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, Trade and Development Bank of Africa, and others, to ensure that we deploy the required and the necessary capital to industrial development, to invest in Africa's industrial development capabilities, to invest in Africa's trade supporting infrastructure, so that we can see the benefits of this significant market. As I mentioned before, in a different platform, I do not know about you, but as an African, I am tired of being a continent of potential. We must turn this potential into reality. We must see the potential producing results for young Africans, for our SMEs, and for our smallholder farmers. And so let me end where I started. This is the most ambitious and compelling economic reform agenda of a generation. And I want to quote Professor Adebayo Adedeji, the former executive secretary of UNCTAD, or rather of UNECA. And I quote, "Africa has to break the apron strings of structural and relational dependence on producing a limited number of cheap primary commodities." I wish all of us very good deliberations, and I want to thank you very much for your attention.